Welcome to the Startup Grind.
If you can figure out what you're good at as a founder, what your strengths are, and you can communicate those effectively to your team as you build them, you can amplify those strengths, and it can really be, oh, the audio's jumping around, it can really be an impactful culture. So, like I said, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the story of Zephyr, because and hopefully you sort of mine what you can out of this and think about your own situation. But we're a company that has been in business 3 years. We've raised over $30 million. USVP did our last round of funding, led it at $18 million. We have 150 full-time employees, and we're based out of Venice, California. We're a Southern California company. And ultimately, what we do, because not a lot of people know us up here, is we provide technology solutions for big media companies and brands on YouTube. And I'll explain what that means. But we actually didn't start off as Zephyr. We started off as a little .com called MovieClips.com. And it started in 2009. And I met my co-founder. We met at Skywalker Ranch, which is just up here in Marin County. And I had a background in traditional media, and he had a background in actually technology. He worked at Credit Suisse, and he'd worked with his brother at Omniture. And we got together and hatched this idea that we could go to people that had movie content and license that content, little clips, and add a bunch of metadata, and make it easy for people to find it and share it and post it. And then we'd advertise against that and split that advertising revenue back with the studios. And the thing that's interesting is we wanted to do it on YouTube, but the big media companies had such a, I mean, they just hated YouTube. They hated Google, really, quite frankly. And I say in the past tense because a lot of that has changed over the last 3 years. But we came together. It was kind of Hollywood meeting Silicon Valley, and this is where the concept of our first sort of behavior for our culture was the idea of go big, go fast. A lot of people say go big, go home, which has always kind of annoyed me because it has a sort of dismissive attitude, like, well, if it doesn't work out, we can go home. And anytime you're starting something, if you're highly invested, not only emotionally, but maybe financially in, there is no going home. Failure is not an option. But we love the idea of speed. And from the outset, when we got together, we said, instead of going to all the independent guys that have little movies, let's go to the big guys. Let's go big. Let's go for it. And so we went out and we very quickly met with all those folks. I had relationships with a lot of them, but we were able to do deals with 6 out of the 7 studios. And outside of Hulu and a few other major sort of media conglomerates, I'd never actually seen that happen, where all the studios decided to play ball and participate with us. But even though we launched our .com, it was literally all about YouTube. And we wanted to make YouTube happen, and we needed something to happen. Always, I think, in the course or the evolution of a company, you actually need things to happen that are a little outside of your control. And this comes down to our second sort of pillar of our culture. It's all about relationships. And I think sometimes, I feel, I don't know if this is true, but I sense sometimes that people don't value as highly down south as they do, or as highly up here as they do down south, the power of relationships. When you meet somebody and you forge a relationship with them and they trust you and you build that bond of trust and that bond of professionalism, it can go a long way. And literally what happened was YouTube hired somebody from the media world down south from Netflix, a guy named Robert Kinsel, who I'd known for many years and worked with, actually, to be the global head of content. And with that change, we were able to do a deal to get our content onto YouTube. Because not only did the studios respect Robert, but Robert also understood what we had to bear. And the interesting story, we talk about it, is the deal that was done at 33,000 feet. We actually came up and pitched YouTube the idea before Robert arrived, and they shot it down. They didn't like the idea of using us because we were an intermediary between the studios. We'd already licensed. So we were going to come onto the platform as a licensor. And I sat next to Robert on a plane ride up from LA to San Francisco. We were coming up from a board meeting. He saw the power of it. We did a deal, and we were able to launch onto YouTube. And a few things happened when that happened. Going back to the speed, my partner said to all the engineers, everybody stop working on the .com and start working with the YouTube APIs. Let's bring all of our engineer talent to building on top of this platform, YouTube. And of course, we know Facebook and Zynga and there's other platforms that companies are built on top of, but when we started, this is a total anomaly. The idea that you would just build tech on top of someone else's platform and be okay with that. There was a network called Machinima, but they actually didn't have any technology. They made content and distributed it on YouTube, but the idea is we wanted to have technology. So one of the first things we launched was just the idea of, in every video we launched, we took all our metadata and we launched this. This is sped up. It's a post roll that happens in YouTube where all the metadata, like for instance, you watch a scene from Aliens, then you can watch the Sigourney Weaver playlist, and then you can watch action sequences, and all of that was clickable within the player, and it traveled. That was the first thing we did, and it was scalable. So literally, we're printing out 20,000 videos with this clickable post roll, and that post roll got a 15% click-through when we first launched our channel, which was kind of amazing to see it fuel. The other thing we did is we realized we could repurpose the content and use YouTube in a different way. So we said, how can we use this content that'd be interesting, engaging, and get people in a click trance? So just really kind of what we think of like, banal stuff like, order the scenes. Just click on the scene that happens next. Or name the film in 3 seconds. Who can name this film, by the way? Anybody? Well, we'll come up for they give us multiple choice. What? Hello? Book of Eli, yes. This was kind of cool. This was an idea that you could choose your own adventure. So, you sold a cop car, and if we had the audio, this would be very funny. But then what are you going to do next? You can either, oh, there it is. Thank you. You can pick up a hitchhiker.
We usually don't pick up hitchhikers.
You go through this whole journey with the content, all interconnected with
I'm going to go with my
instinct
on this one.
So, what is, I'll go past this. This is, anyway, a bunch of guys here. Nobody will get that one. It's a big closet, I think, is the, what does she say next? Anyway, so what was amazing is we did all this, we distributed, and we launched all this stuff, and then a fascinating thing happened. We were getting huge views, tremendous views, but still, in search, we were being outranked on YouTube by fans. So, for instance, we'd upload a scene of Lord of the Rings, and a fan would upload the exact same scene, not the exact same in and out points, but a similar scene, and that fan was crushing us in terms of views. And this is where kind of the third pillar of our behavior came in. And the idea was, it's all around initiative, and we talk about lever up, which is leverage up. Take a situation, if it looks like a negative, flip it on its head and see what you can do with it to make it a positive. In this instance, all the fans' content, who weren't licensees of the content, were outranking us and getting more views than we were on the content that we'd actually paid the studio for, and we were doing a rev split. And we realized, like, we can either push the studios to take this down, or we can empower the studios to allow the fans to keep it up and just claim it through the back end of YouTube so that the fans get to keep it up. All the advertising money comes back to us, and we split it with the studio. And we realized that that was an opportunity. And actually, it was going to change the dynamic of what was happening with media in this new age. Henry Jenkins just wrote a book about this exact scenario. It's called Spreadable Media. The idea that big media companies, they perceive that they lose control, but they don't. But they allow fans to actually become the distributors of the content. And you can see how it's, in a way, it's crowdsourced marketing, right? Because that fan, the reason these fans were killing us in views is these guys had built up, they had all their friends and family watching it, passing it around. We were a company that was uploading this content. We didn't have that network yet. We hadn't built that infrastructure, that audience. So we went into the studios and said, look, there's a difference between passion and piracy, and you've got to recognize that. Passion, fans are people that are ultimately trying to increase brand awareness about your media. And they're not trying to steal and not trying to cannibalize your profits. Piracy is doing the opposite of that. The first studio to agree to this concept was Warner Brothers. And then we went down the road, down the line, and got everybody to agree to it. So right now, for our studio partners, we claim and monetize that content on their behalf. Our network, right now, just our licensed content on the MOVIECLIPS network, does a little over 100 million views a month. Our distributed network on all the fan sites, we do 1.3 billion views a month through all the you know, the different channels. And the idea is that our technology that we built that sits on top of Content ID literally harnesses that power. And so, I don't know. Oh, so the reason we moved to Zephyr was because YouTube liked it so much. Because, by the way, when you as a fan upload a piece of content to YouTube and you say, I don't actually own Lord of the Rings, you don't click that box. Because of DMCA, YouTube can't throw ads up against that content. So when we come in and we, on behalf of the content holders, say, yes, this is Warner Brothers content, leave it up, you can go ahead and monetize it. Now, YouTube gets its cut of the advertising, we get our cut, and the studio gets. So literally, it's a win-win-win for everyone. And so we've announced, we rebranded to Zephyr. We're going into these other verticals. We haven't announced the partnerships, but they're literally on the level of our studio partnerships in the movies vertical. And I just talked about the numbers, which are totally staggering. I mean, we'll be at 2 billion views. We'll be at 3 billion views, we think, before the end of the year in terms of monthly views. And just to review, we talk about go big, go fast. This is one of our tenets. This is what we talk about internally all the time. We tell our employees, think huge. We compensate based on this. We also talk about find the current. I flew in this morning and I was walking through LAX and they have those walkways. You know, you ever step on those walkways? And you know, how does that feel when you're on that walkway and you're walking and you're just cruising, right? You're like going with the current. And so many times I feel like when you're trying to start a company, you're missing the signs of swimming in the current because you have a preconceived idea of what your business should be. We never envisioned that we'd be a technology company built on YouTube to help major media companies and brands. We thought we were going to be movieclips.com, a destination site. But ultimately, the current was heading towards YouTube, and this opportunity was heading us there. And so we went with the current. And then initiative is a huge thing in our company. We do a thing, we call it always be pitching internally. We got no bad ideas, always be pitching. And lever up, which is leverage up. And the last one is will it to win. And that's kind of funky and mystical, I know. And some people hear that and they're like, oh gosh, give me a break. But there is, you cannot deny it, there is just something about it when you just want it so bad. I don't know why we got on an airplane that day with Robert Kinsel at the same time to make that deal happen, where I sat in the same seat next to him. But we were going to get that YouTube deal done, and we were going to get the studios onto YouTube. It was either going to be that, or it was going to be some other event that came along. And this idea that you can actually just use all your energy and all your creativity and your process and your thinking and your logic to make stuff happen. And then the last thing is relationships, which is just a huge tenet of our culture. We're all about being good people. We actually, there's a book, you know, No Assholes Allowed, I think. I don't know how many, but it's, the idea is that those people can actually really drag down your company, especially if you want to build a company that has like positive can-do attitude. It always just, it never ceases to amaze me. Just one individual can come in and sort of sour the group. And the idea is that you really need to very quickly associate who those people are and weed them out, or it can become a virus. The idea is they succeed, we succeed. Our org structure is very unique. I wouldn't say it's flat, but the thing that we found when we were working so closely at YouTube, have you ever asked yourself why Google does reorgs all the time? Literally, they do reorganizations all the time. Every 6 months, something shifts within YouTube and Google in terms of their structure. And after a while working so closely with them, we realized what it was, which was fascinating to me. At least this is my theory. I'm not speaking on their behalf. But they always were looking at individuals and saying the cream rises to the top. Those stars we don't want to hold back, and we will promote. And the people that can't keep up, we are going to put them under somebody who's a superstar. And so we're going to allow a structure in which people can just go for it. And you can see who are the stars and the superstars that are going to move metrics and move mountains. And that's why you see, my personal feeling is that's why you see so much shifting there, because every time there's been a change at YouTube where things have changed around and structure have changed, we've always looked at it and said, wow, we always knew that guy who's now running that. Man, he was a superstar. Boy, he was moving mountains over here. Now they've given him more people, more resources. They're really going for it in this area. And that idea that you can really, you want to allow people to succeed and your partners to succeed. And then the last one, this is touchy-feely. We do this mostly because it's kind of one of those things, when you meet somebody that you just like them kind of immediately, like there's a sort of familiarity between them. And part of it is because kind of the signs that they're giving off. I meet somebody tonight who has a hoodie. I'm like, hey, cool hoodie. We got something in common. And the idea is when you're working with media content, it helps if you love media. And people can feel that. Our partners can feel that when they work with us. And so we say it a little different. We say we're artistic people. I know that's really touchy-feely, but it does seem to infiltrate our culture. And we recognize it and we're cool with it. In fact, we like to harness that energy and use it for the good of the company. And anyway, that's it in terms of those 3 tenets for Zephyr. I hope in a small way it's made you think about the companies you're starting and kind of the culture that you want to create within your company, and really look inward and look at yourself and say, what is it that I do well, or what is it that attracts me and that gets me going, and then be able to communicate that to your team and build a really solid culture. Anyway, thank you.